Welcome to this Whole Life Action Hour. I am Ocean Robbins, and we are here today to talk about the science of transforming stress and cultivating peace. There's a lot of stress in the modern world, and it takes a terrible toll on human health, longevity, and happiness. We hear studies all the time saying, oh, don't be stressed, don't be stressed. Stress is bad for your health. And sometimes it just makes people more stressed. They get worried about being stressed. But here's the good news. There are proven, scientifically grounded solutions that can help you to dial down the stress and dial up the peace. And the good news is that doing this isn't just good for your longevity. It also adds more joy to your life, and it adds more joy to our world because we're all connected, as we're going to be talking about today. Stress is contagious, but so is peace. We're going to be talking today about some of the proven methods from some of the leading researchers on the planet, an organization called HeartMath Institute. And the CEO is Deborah Rozman, who is with us today. And you're going to be learning about research-backed tools to help your heart and your nervous system to be calm, to be steady, and to be resilient. And this isn't woo-woo stuff either. We're going to be talking about the latest breakthrough research and talking about what really works in the real world. Now, I want to be very clear before going any further. Nothing you hear today is medical advice. This is coaching. We're sharing our best insights. But of course, you should always consult with a qualified healthcare professional for your specific medical issues and needs. That said, you're going to learn a lot today. So we're here today with Deborah Rozman, PhD. She is the president and co-CEO of HeartMath Incorporated. And she is the leader of it with the HeartMath founder, Doc Childrey. She's also a psychologist with over 40 years of experience. She's also an entrepreneur, an educator, and an author. As a key spokesperson for HeartMath, Deborah is a globally recognized expert on the power of heart rate variability coherence training for accelerating personal growth and expanding consciousness. She's the author or co-author of a dozen books, including HeartMath Brain Fitness Program, Transforming Anger, Transforming Stress, Meditation for Children, Stopping Emotional Eating, and her latest, Heart Intelligence, Connecting with the Intuitive Guidance of the Heart. Welcome, Deborah.
Oh, thank you, Ocean. I'm so glad to be here with you.
Well, I'm so glad to be here with you. You know, when we talk about heart coherence and heart rate variability, these are big concepts. Can you break it down for us a little bit? What does your research focus on?
Well, this goes back to 1991 when the nonprofit HeartMath Institute was first launched in the research lab to research how the heart, the brain, the nervous system, the body, how all these aspects of our operating system talk to each other, because Doc Childrey, our founder, anticipated that there was going to be huge increases in stress, and people needed to know how they could manage that better for health, for performance, for well-being, for getting along with each other, for life. And so when we did our research, we looked at all sorts of forms of biofeedback that could show us when we have our emotional state changes. And this was way before positive psychology. It was before all the wearables that we have now. This was just basic research. And what we found was that it was not in the brain, not in this galvanic skin response, but it was in how the heart rate changed, the heart rate rhythm, beat to beat to beat changes, and that's called heart rate variability. And those monitors were used at that time just for fetal monitoring. But we went, I wonder if we hook ourselves up to a sensor and look at our heart rate changes beat to beat, if we can see changes in how we feel, our emotional state. And sure enough, that was the breakthrough that was published in the American Journal of Cardiology. It was the first time they were showing a connection between our emotional state and the rhythms of the heart, the physical heart, the critical link. And so in looking at that, we saw that when we were frustrated, anxious, impatient, angry, all the stressful emotions created this jagged, incoherent rhythm in our heart rate variability pattern. And the more upset we were, the more stressed we felt, the more jagged and irregular that rhythm. It was like the autonomic nervous system, parasympathetic and sympathetic, which composes heart rate variability, fighting each other, like driving your car with one foot on the brake and one foot on the accelerator. Doesn't that what stress feels like? And completely draining yourself of energy, burning more gas, and eventually breaking down the immune and the hormonal and other systems in the body. So it was like a window into the stress response. And the window was the heart. And good news, when we're feeling peace, harmony, love, genuine feelings of care, compassion, gratitude, that heart rate variability or heart rhythm pattern changed right in the moment to this beautiful, smooth, rolling hill sine wave pattern, very ordered. And a sine wave in physics is called a coherent waveform. And sure enough, when we hooked people's brain waves up and saw whatever happened up here, when we were stressed, this got all chaotic. And when we were feeling peace and love and care and kindness and those wonderful, uplifting, joyful emotions, this synchronized to it. And therefore, we had heart-brain coherence. So we went, whoa, here's a secret. If we can help health professionals, people, ordinary people, see what's going on and give them some simple techniques to shift their heart rate variability pattern, then we can help them take charge of their stress response. So that's heart rhythm coherence, and heart rate variability.
Well, fascinating and really remarkable, because the saying goes that we succeed at what we measure. And when it comes to things like how someone feels, it's highly subjective.
Right.
But you're creating an objectivity to it by saying these metrics enable us to actually assess what works and what doesn't, without, because so often people, they take a new medicine, they're like, oh, I feel better. And, the medicine hasn't kicked in at all. It might be placebo, right? And placebo is very powerful. But when we can get more objective, then we're able to actually assess how someone's really doing, which enables far more efficacy in terms of treatment protocols to help people create the outcome they want. And I want to understand, though, a little more about what these things actually are measuring. So if I'm hearing you correctly, heart rate variability relates to the quality and nature of the rhythms of the heart. And a person who is calm and at peace, really, with life will have this very balanced, steady kind of a rhythm. And a person who is in a lot of stress, it will be more jagged and bumpy. Is that a fair oversimplification?
We're talking about in the moment, how you feel,
not
over time necessarily. And I'll cut to that in a minute. But your heart rate, and you go to the doctor and he measures your pulse. He says, oh, it's 60 beats per minute. That's right. An average. Your heart rate is actually changing with every single beat. And that's how Chinese medicine doctors can feel your pulse and know what's wrong with you. It's not mystical. It's actually feeling the rhythm of the heart rate. It actually goes from like 40 beats to 70 beats, down to 50 beats, up to 60 beats. And so it averages out.
Yeah.
And what happens in our algorithm and heart rate variability is it plots its change beat to beat to beat, 40 to 70 to 30 to 80. And that forms a graph, a pattern.
Yeah.
And it totally reflects how we feel in that moment. So when I talk about peace or love or care, creating this smooth up and down, that's how you're feeling at that moment. If you're frustrated and impatient at that moment, it's going to be higgledy-piggledy, all jagged.
Yeah.
Now, what happens is if we're stressed a lot and over time, that pattern becomes a habit. So we get an anxiety habit or a depression habit or an anger habit. And it triggers over and over because the brain looks at what's being sent from the vagal nerve from the heart into the amygdala and the thalamus, and it develops patterns, habit patterns. So that's how we can develop emotional habits. We can also develop the habit of peace, of love, of care, of kindness, this coherent pattern, so that we default more to that when a trigger happens. We go to neutral, or we're able to be more poised and pause and make choices where we're not just caving into the frustration. And that's the beauty of heart rate variability feedback. It shows you very sensitively in the moment what's happening, and it's a mirror of how you feel. So if you begin to then focus on, say, your pet, cat or dog, and you feel the love you have for them, you're going to see your heart rhythm suddenly get real smooth. And you're going, wow, I did that. So it's empowering. It's a window into how you can take charge and over time build a new baseline of heart coherence.
Got it. Fascinating. And you are saying that there are also tests that can be done on the brainwave activity that are comparable, that are also showing coherence. And do those tend to align with the heart so that a person who is showing, do you usually see peace and steadiness and calm in a human being in both places at once, or do they sometimes get out of whack where the heart's all nice and the brain's all freaked out?
That's a good question. The heart is the driver. Most people think the brain controls the heart. It's not true. We were taught that. The heart, in many instances, is telling the brain how the body feels. There's an actual little nervous system called the little brain in the heart that has neurons that sense, feel, learn, and remember, that's totally independent than the brain in the head. And it has a different function, and it's to tell our head brain how we are feeling. Like we feel feelings in the area of the heart. We don't really feel feelings, emotions in the brain. We say, I love you with all my heart. We don't say, I love you with all my brain.
So true. And one of the great myths of the modern world is that our brains think they're in charge.
Yes.
Or at least our minds think that our brains are in charge. And,
right.
So we try to solve problems here. And sometimes is a wisdom, like our brains are actually at their best, I think, when they're curious and when they're learning from the rest of the organism and the rest of life. But they're always a step behind because they're learning from what happens outside them. And when they think they're in charge, they make I think, a great learner, but a terrible leader, actually.
Well, I totally agree. And when we talk about lead with the heart, we're not talking about leading with your emotional reactions or your desires. We're talking about get into that heart coherent pattern of harmony and inner peace and ease. Then what happens, and there's over 400 independent published studies of HeartMath Institute research. But what happens there can be considered a breakthrough in human consciousness, because as you get that coherent heart rhythm, you begin to access a field of information so that you get more connection with downloads, intuition, with wisdom, the wisdom of the heart. And the ancient Egyptians, ancient Chinese, Greeks, they all considered the heart the center of wisdom. And in modern science, the heart ended up just being a blood pump, right, not realizing that it has 4 different ways that it is picking up information and sending it upstairs so the brain can respond. But that's why the mind's late, because the way it flows is intuition is heart, brain, gut. We talk about our gut feelings. Well, that's tertiary. It first comes in for the heart, then to the brain, and the brain signals the nervous system in the body. So it's really important to understand that we can have more steady connection with our heart's intuitive guidance or wisdom once we know how to get into this heart rate variability coherence and shift and regulate our emotional reactions. We can stabilize more in that heart connection.
We hear about the importance of stress reduction for longevity and well-being.
Yep.
It makes sense that stress is bad for our experience of peace and joy and happiness in a given moment. And then we hear studies saying that it's bad for life expectancy, that people who are stressed are more likely to have heart attacks, they're more likely to get cancer, they're more likely to die sooner. Right. Have you been able to establish a connection between heart rate coherence and longevity?
Well, let's look at it this way. I'll answer that question in 2 different ways. One is the stress research is showing that it's the autonomic nervous system, how the parasympathetic and sympathetic interact, that gets out of whack and creates all sorts of immune, hormonal, physiological depletion. And the autonomic nervous system is regulating 90% of your body's involuntary functions, from sleep to immune response, digestion, elimination. I mean, just almost everything. And heart rate variability, incoherence or coherence, is a reflection of the autonomic nervous system. So when it's in balance, your body is functioning better, and that leads to healthier choices, healthier operation. And that comes from being more often a heart rhythm, smooth, coherent state, if the autonomic nervous system is functioning in a smooth way. So that's one way of responding. And if your ANS, will shorten it, is always out of sync, because that's what happens in the stress response. As soon as you feel frustrated or stressed, it's a feeling, it's not just thinking it. Over 1,500 biochemicals are released in your body to go into fight, flight, or survival mode. And a lot of that's triggered by the heart rhythm very quickly signaling the brain, stress, survival, protection. And so cortisol is released, which is the stress hormone, and all sorts of stuff happens.
Yes.
That over time depletes your body and leads to a breakdown. And that leads to problems with life expectancy. So between heart disease, diabetes, overweight, emotional eating, I mean, you can see the cascade. It's estimated that 90% of doctor visits to primary care physicians are for stress-related complaints, from back pain to all the things I just mentioned. Now, they've also shown that the ends of the genes called telomeres actually diminish, which determine our lifespan, diminish under stress and worry and anxiety. And on the other hand, when we start reducing those feelings and having more feelings of peace and harmony, feeling more heart connected, living more from the heart, that telomere shrinkage doesn't occur, and it may even regrow. And that's some interesting research going on, not by our institute, but elsewhere. So stress is definitely one of the number one aspects for disease, and let alone feeling pretty bad.
Absolutely. Your body of work is based on hundreds of studies published in peer-reviewed medical journals. You've been at this for decades.
Yep.
Are there any particular studies that you think, like, wow, the world needs to hear about this?
Yeah, there's several. And the first one I mentioned, the one published in the American Journal of Cardiology, which was our first breakthrough in 1995, that you really, and then we developed technology called the inner balance and the M-wave technologies, where people can actually see in real time on their mobile phone the shift in their heart rhythms, and with guides and training tools of how to make that shift right in the moment and how to increase your baseline. So we've developed all sorts of courses and training programs and certifications for health professionals, and just courses for the ordinary person, consumer, to be able to learn to do that. So that also led to a lot of research using that technology. And a lot of that has been published in over 400 peer-reviewed published papers, from everything to how to get better decision making, to improving athletic performance, to numerous health outcomes. So from reduced anxiety, reduced depression, I mean, I could go on and on. All those are published papers. But at the same time, one of my favorite papers is published more recently, has to do with coherence between people. And we have a whole series of, the HeartMath Institute does, magnetometers in the ground that measure changes in the Earth's magnetic field. You could say the magnetic field generated by the Earth is like the magnetic field that generated by our heartbeat, and they overlap in frequency. And so this was a research project to see if we're putting out love and collectively put out and do a heart meditation, can we impact each other in the Earth's field non-locally? So this research study was showing people who live near these different magnetometers. One's in Lithuania, one's in Canada, one's here in Boulder Creek, California, one's in South Africa. And they all did what we call a heart lock-in. It's a type of heart meditation where you shift focus to the heart, pretend your breath is flowing through the heart, and radiate a heart coherent feeling like love or harmony something that really puts your heart rhythm into coherence, because it doesn't work if you're just thinking it.
Yeah.
It's got to be genuinely felt to see what would happen. And what was blow away is that it appeared to be, as we analyzed the hundreds of heart rate variability traces from these people who wore these Holter recorders for days as part of this research experiment, that when they did the heart lock in together, it appeared that there was a synchronizing signal in the heart rate variability we hadn't seen before, coming from the Earth's magnetic field. And we went, whoa, this is really intriguing. This seems to indicate we're all connected in the heart. That's facilitated by a frequency in the Earth's fields, in its magnetosphere, from the Schumann resonances in the ionosphere and the magnetic field generated from the core of the Earth. So it's exciting stuff. It's part of the Global Coherence Initiative research project. So I think that's the latest study. And then I shared with you the first study. And
Fascinating. And I can imagine, well, I'll be honest with you. If I wasn't hearing about this based on studies published in peer-reviewed journals, a part of me would be like, magnetic field from the Earth, heart coherence, people in all these different places being connected. That sounds a little out there, you know?
It does.
It does sound out there, but you know what? It's also real, isn't it?
It's real. And if we didn't have something out there helping us understand that love and these qualities of the heart, were the thing that connect us and prove it would just be staying in church and philosophy. And this is hard science saying this is real stuff, guys. There really is a wisdom of the heart and an intuition. And there really is, love really does run the show of connecting us. And that's what we all want more of. And here's the science. And maybe that'll help us see that ways we really can all get along, but we have to self-regulate our reactions. And that's what heart coherence powers us up to do. So to me, this is like the hope to activate the heart of humanity, because religion certainly has activated separation.
Among other things.
Among other things.
You know, I look at human beings, and sometimes I'm sure I'm not the only one who looks at our species and can feel some modicum of despair at times. You know, Martin Luther King said the arc of history is long, but I believe it bends towards justice. And we can see examples of that, but we can also see examples of humanity seemingly on a one-way street to oblivion. And we see so many expressions, I think, of fear and violence and fundamentalism and separation and dogmatism that creates rifts within families, within communities, within villages, within nations. And it can be painful to ask, you know, unless humans can learn to work together in some way, our prospects don't look too great, because with our population growing and our resource consumption overshoot and climate change and more guns and bombs every day, like there's some dire concerning things happening. And what I think, though, is that in some ways you could look at the grand epoch of our times as being a story of love and fear. You could say that fear as an operating principle begets more fear and begets more separation and begets more violence. And you could say that love as an operating principle creates cooperation, creates coherence, creates collaboration, creates fertile potential for a brighter future. And I can speak personally here for a moment as a father of identical twins who are on the autism spectrum. And their moods change. They can be incredibly sweet and delightful. And at times they also get off their center and they can go downhill very fast. And I noticed that when I see one of my kids speaking in a way that's unkind or, you know, fear-based or upset, I have a choice. If I respond in kind, we're probably going downhill together pretty fast. And if I focus on my nervous system and I say, okay, my job now is to stay calm, stay at peace, and stay in a space of love and possibility, I am amazed how often they respond to that.
Right.
And it almost doesn't matter what I say. It almost doesn't matter whether they get what they want. When my heart is open and I'm present, I create a doorway for connection. And so I'm learning now that strategy, what do I say? What do I do to respond to this thing on the outside, is secondary to a nervous system that is calm and centered and at peace, and a heart that is full of love. And it is almost without fail that our times together hinge on that choice.
Well said. And every parent would be wise to hear that. And every school teacher. HeartMath is programs for education, pre-K through 12 are in over 1,000 schools now. Because if the teacher learns the HeartMath techniques, you're using something that's similar, which is how do you self-manage your own reactions? What do you do in the moment when you're about ready to scream?
Yes.
That's the key, is what our whole society hasn't learned, and we haven't taught the kids, and we don't do it ourselves as adults, so we don't model it, is how to bring ourselves and why we should to back to center, back to the heart. We have a term at HeartMath called straight line back to the heart. It's like how fast when you get out and you get frustrated, you get triggered, can you get back in? And techniques to help you do that in less than a minute. One's called quick coherence. The other one is called attitude breathing. And these, if you're hooked up to our monitors, you will see physiologically why it works mentally and emotionally, because it's all connected: physical, mental, and emotional. The nervous system is regulated very quickly. And so that's why we decided to develop all these techniques and make them available to the world as corporations, hospitals, healthcare systems, schools, prisons, because everybody needs to know how to what we call self-regulate, regulate our emotional reactions, because everything else has been tried. And look where we are, like you said, on a course to downward spiral. But when we learn, it's fine to say, oh, that's just love. But people don't know how to do that when they're triggered or they've been traumatized. You just can't say, forgive, let go, love, move on.
Right.
You know, you've got to give people the methods by which to do that. And it does take some practice and support. And as people do that, their whole life changes, their relationship with their kids, their spouse, their families, and their brain. They open up to bigger picture thinking. That's how the human operating system is designed. It's designed to have heart rhythm coherence, which I call the signature of love.
Yeah. Well, we're going to get really tangible soon and talk about the specifics of how folks can apply some of this. We're also going to answer some of the questions that have come in from our Whole Life Club members in advance of this interview. But first, I have one question for you, Deborah.
Yeah.
It seems to me that some people are afraid that to sort of turn the other cheek, so to speak, to respond to stress or violence with love is weak. And, you know, there is a half truth to that. There can be a kind of spiritual bypassing, if you will, that ignores a problem and just says it's all good. I had a friend once whose car sounded really bad, and she said, I'm just giving it some love and that I'll get home fine. And I was like, no, you should really go to a mechanic. You know, so there are times when like to tell yourself that it's all good when it's not doesn't make things better. It just is stupid. But at the same time, there's a half truth in it, which is that a positive attitude and it gives us more resourcefulness to actually deal with problems.
Well,
so how do you think about that?
Yeah, let me talk about it this way. Love, that's what we call heart intelligence. There's business heart. Love isn't just this love, you know, as people associate. That's what we call it, the heart's intelligence. Love is an intelligence unto itself. When you can get your heart and brain in sync, in coherence, you have more intelligence about how to move forward. You have the intelligence that says, I've learned that if I'm reactive with my kids, it's going to go downhill. Whereas if I can maintain calm and balance, they're going to feel it and respond and feel more secure and respond accordingly. That's intelligence. That's wisdom. That's not the gooey love. Love is unfortunately considered mostly, let me just send heart and love and everything will be better. It's not, doesn't work that way. The brain is important. You want to send coherent heart energy so your higher frontal lobes activate. And then you have more intelligence. That is really part of the function of heart coherence, is to activate our higher potentials. And I mean, Einstein talked about it. He's got a quote often applied to him that says, basically we can't solve our problems by the same level of consciousness through which they were created. We've got to go to a higher vibration, a higher intelligence. And that's what the heart coherence is designed to do. But you don't get into coherence on a negative, stressful attitude. It doesn't happen. That whacks out the system. So you have to go to calm or harmony or a quality of the heart. And we call all those qualities pieces of the pie of love.
Yes, thank you. Okay, well, let's get to some of the questions from our members, and some of them help us get a little more practical here, because I'm sure a lot of folks are interested in what to do to apply all this.
Yeah.
Seville said, would love to know Deborah's advice on how best to recover from a stressful day or event. I've heard it is advisable to not relax after a stressful event so as to give your mind time to ruminate and instead to distract yourself. Go for a walk or exercise. Could this method repress emotions? Thank you so much.
Yeah, so think of it this way. The technique I'm going to share with you later, or when it's time, and all the HeartMath techniques are designed not to repress, but to transform. And in order to transform, you got to lift above the problem, just like that Einstein quote. So that's why if you've been stressed, a lot of people do suggest take a walk, go to nature, because that activates heart coherence, the peace and calm of nature. Exercise gets your juices, your endorphins flowing, it changes your heart rate variability. The technique that I'm going to share with you, the 1-minute technique, will do that too, because it's getting you above the problem so that you can get a different view of it rather than running around and ruminating. And relaxation by itself is not powerful enough. It's not a high performing state. You never tell people just relax and then you think you're going to be able to perform. Coherence is a combination of activation and relaxation. It's an energized presence, being present. And it's getting your heart and brain rhythms in sync, both of them, and your nervous system. So it's all operating at a highly tuned, harmonized state. And it gives you more access to your higher potentials, to who you really are. That's what you want, because then you see, as so many of us do afterwards, oh, I was just adding so much significance to that. It's no big deal. I mean, I can let it go, because you're seeing a bigger picture. Yeah. Or you get in clarity of how to communicate to the person who is stressing you. Solutions come. That's what we want. It's not that's what transformation of stress does.
Yes, thank you. Martine asked, what can be done if whatever is causing the stress is still there?
Well, if you have a child, a spouse, somebody you can't get away from, that's the source of a lot of your stress reactions. You have to really ask your own self how you better manage yourself. Do it for you. Otherwise, you're just in a situation where you're constantly draining your energy. Just like, I'll use you as an example, Ocean. Somewhere along the line, you discovered you're going to be miserable if you just react to your identical twins' reactions.
Yeah.
And you said, I got to do something different. So you calmed your nervous system, you opened your heart, and you went, this works. That's what we all have to be, our own self-scientists, and do with the causes of our stress. Now, in some situations, your heart's guidance might be, I really do need to step away from this. Other situations, it's make peace with what you can't change. Maybe it's an illness that you can't change. So you're learning to make peace with what you can change what you can and make peace with what you can't. That requires heart power to really make peace. And heart coherence is heart power. It helps you step back from the cause and see your next step solutions.
Yeah, thank you. I think the other piece of that, of course, is the serenity prayer is asking for the courage to change what we can, the serenity to accept what we can't, and the wisdom to know the difference. And it strikes me that when there's this coherence, we are better capable of exercising good judgment about what we can change and what we can't change.
Absolutely. It sharpens our discernment. You don't discern things when you're in a reactive state. It's just like those emails. Somebody sent you an email and you have a reaction, and you just reply and you go, oh, I wish I hadn't replied so fast.
Act in haste, regret in leisure.
So instead, you want that little voice bird on your shoulder to prompt you and say, that's your heart or your conscience. Oh, wait a minute, take a break, breathe, develop a compassion for yourself or whatever. And then you'll have more discernment of how to respond.
Yeah. Valerie said, Deborah, my question leading in, I ask myself every day is how do I calm my nerves before they hit the ceiling? Deep breaths work, but remembering to do this before it's too late is the problem.
Yeah, well, we tell people, yes, breathe, stop and breathe, but we want you to do it, the technique I'll teach you that can really power up your ability to calm your nerves. And that is an attitude breathing. You want to breathe the quality of the heart, like pick them. There's so many. Breathe patience, breathe ease, breathe compassion for yourself or someone else. Do this for 30 seconds. I'm not talking about a long meditation. HeartMath tools are meant to be used on the go when we need them in the moment. We can't always run off and take a walk in nature or meditate when our nerves are frayed. We need to do something right in the moment. And that's what we can do because you're going right to the cause, the source, the autonomic nervous system, and you're balancing that. And you feel it almost immediately. So this is something you can do, is get into heart coherence within a minute, and you'll have calmer nerves and you'll feel more in charge. You'll feel like, okay, now I have more discernment on what to do next.
Yeah, thank you. Sierra asked, what are some best practices to let go of a stressful day?
To let go of what?
A stressful day.
Well, all the things people tell you to do, talk to a friend, to exercise, etc. I'm going to share with you the HeartMath practice to let go of a stressful day. And that's how you can get into heart coherence. You can always use the technology that we have, the inner balance, and we have to measure it and see it happening in real time, but you don't have to have it. You can use the technique and refine that. It's sort of like rebooting your computer. You're rebooting your inner operating system. You're resetting. And that's what we all should do when we need to.
Yes, thank you. Chelsea asked, what is the best way to track your heart rate? If I have to sit a lot for work, how often throughout the day is it important to raise my heart rate, and how can I do that best?
Well, I don't know about raising heart rate or lowering heart rate. Athletes want to lower their heart rate over time so they have more endurance. Heart rate variability is really cool because children have more of it than adults. It's age related how much you have, meaning connected to flexibility. If you have a lot of heart rate variability, meaning a lot of change in your heart rate from 30 to 100 to 20 to 80, that's not the pattern, that's the amount. You have more ability to shift emotions, just like kids. Someone took my toy, he's crying and screaming, 2 minutes later, he's happy. That is a function of heart rate variability, really having a lot of flexibility. Or you're sitting at work and then you want to go run up a hill. That is flexibility, to be able to do that and then bring your heart rate right back down.
Yeah.
The emotional response is really the pattern of heart rate variability. And there you want to be able to shift emotions just like a kid running up a hill. When you feel bad, when you feel fearful, when you feel angry, when you feel upset, how do you shift it to, maybe you won't get to joy, but how do you at least get to neutral or shift it to a more peaceful place? That's far more important than whether your heart rate itself is high or low, because you can be heart rhythm coherent at a high heart rate or a low heart rate.
Got it. And that ultimately is your focus, is on the rhythm coherence piece. We had a question from Liana who asked, what kinds of things affect HRV and how can I improve mine?
Yeah, there's a lot of things that do affect it. Most thing is emotional state. That affects it. That's what we've been talking about this whole time, because that's the most important thing, is how we're managing or handling our feelings, our emotions, because they relate to how we manage our perceptions. You can be perceiving something like paranoid one minute and, oh no, that's not real the next. And people are experiencing more and more of that these days because there's so many unpredictable changes going on in the world. People don't know what's what. So being able to come back to center and really reboot and reset is so important. And that's why we focus on that. That's what people need, the world needs, we all need that right now. So we can gain some sense of security or certainty, instead of being confused by all these mood swings that we can feel throughout the day. And that's not our fault. That's happening in society. It's happening because of some of the earth changes, the Earth's magnetic field changes, which we don't have time to go into, but we can learn to control the heart rhythm that's responding to all that. Mm-hmm. So HRV is very strongly affected by solar wind changes. Mm-hmm. And HRV is affected more than brain waves or anything else. And so the electromagnetic field changes. This picks it up, the heart, quicker than anything. And so what we want to do is, again, be able to learn how to reset, reboot.
Yes. Tracy asked, can you explain why stress might be considered the root of so many serious health problems? And if so, or if you had to select one practice that is both the deepest and broad reaching in terms of application, what would it be and why?
Yeah, I think I've addressed that in a certain sense. I've stressed the whole causality between emotional stress. Stress is a feeling. I mean, if you just think frustrating thoughts and it's sort of weak, it doesn't really hit your feeling world, it's going to still create some disturbance in your HRV. But boy, when you feel it, that's when it gets crazy, and that your emotions call the shots on so much. And so learning how to not repress them, not vent them, but just ease them, manage them, so that you can have a steady state of intuition or wisdom, helps us find the flow through life. That's what we really want, is more ease and flow. So the technique that I use, quick coherence and attitude breathing, is designed to help us reset to that. And that's the quickest way I know.
Okay, well, let's get into that then. Quick coherence and attitude breathing, you said?
Yeah.
Okay, can you lead us through how to practice either or both of those?
All right, this is designed to be a technique you do in the moment. It's not like the meditation, although you can do it longer. So it's all been researched, these steps. It may sound too simple to you, but each step is important. The first step is focus your attention in the area of the heart. That means shift out of here to here and pretend like your breath is flowing in and out of your heart or chest area. So you breathe in to maybe a count of 5 or 6 and breathe out to a similar count. Find a nice, easy rhythm that's comfortable, not forced. So let's do that together.
Okay.
Heart focus and heart focus breathing. In through the area of the heart and out through the area of the heart.
Does it matter if you're breathing through your nose or mouth?
No.
Okay.
Whatever is comfortable. And as you do this, you'll start to feel like your lungs or your heart or your system's breathing you. You'll start to find a rhythm like a swing. Just easy and gentle. And that's just the first step. And you can do this anytime when you start to feel dysregulated. Just do heart-focused breathing even and help you go to a more balanced, neutral state. If I had you hooked up to my inner balance sensor, you would see your heart rhythm starting to smooth out. Now, you continue heart-focused breathing. Now we want to activate a regenerative or renewing emotion. a feeling of appreciation or gratitude for someone or something in your life. It could be a time in nature, someone you love, your pet. Children love to do chocolate chip cookies. It doesn't matter. You want to feel the feeling of it that you appreciate. So you're breathing in through the heart and out through the heart, and you're activating that feeling. And if you can't feel appreciation or gratitude or care, a heart quality, then just breathe the quality of calm and ease.
Yeah. I sometimes, when I'm doing this practice, I think about a person or place that makes me feel wonderful.
That's right.
Like
There you go.
just picturing that person or that place just fills me with a sense of joy. Maybe it's
And that is quick coherence. If I had you hooked up, you would see the shift into a coherent waveform because it's filling you with joy. It's filling you with a positive feeling. Now, the feeling is the key. The visualization or the picturing is just a step towards the feeling. And that's really important to underline, because if you're just thinking positive thought or thinking of a person, it's not necessarily going to translate into that feeling.
Right. Sure. Well, I could think about the person and think about, oh, I should have visited them and I didn't respond to their text, and I'm back in my mind. But if I think about what it is that makes me feel wonderful,
that's right.
You know, or even a memory of a moment with somebody.
Absolutely. Or time in nature or whatever. A good memory.
Yeah.
That is one of the healthiest things you can be doing for yourself, bar none. That puts your heart rhythm into coherence. And now if you can do that for a whole minute, a whole minute, that's not a long time, but you're doing heart focused breathing, because the breathing helps to bring it through your whole nervous system. And you're breathing that attitude of calm or love or joy or appreciation. And if you don't feel an attitude, that's okay. Just breathe in the intention of calm or care or compassion. That works too. And as you do that for a whole minute, it'll change how you view the situation a minute before. Because the heart will send a coherent signal to the brain instead of an incoherent one.
Fascinating. Okay, so everybody watching right now, you can't tell me you can't find a minute. Not when your entire life and your coherence and your well-being are at stake.
Do it every day and just make it to start your day. If you do meditation or other exercises, yoga or whatever, or do nothing, pause and do this. Shift focus to the heart. Step one. Pretend the breath is flowing in through the heart and out through the heart in a calm, even rhythm. Step two, heart focused breathing. Do that for 10 breaths or so, or as longer, but do it enough till you feel that shift. And then add or activate the renewing emotion. And you've lots to pick. I have children, when we teach this to kids, they make a treasure chest. So they have it in front of them. Which one do I want to pick? Love for my cat, love for my mom, appreciation for the good grade I just got. I mean, you can pick a treasure chest that evokes that wonderful feeling or calm. And pick one and do that for a minute, and it will change your life.
Wow. Awesome. You're right. It sounds really simple. But again, the key things are 5 seconds in, 5 seconds out or so. Breathing with the consciousness of breathing in and out through the heart. That's how you see it, visualize it, picture it. Do that for 10 breaths or so, and then add the layer of picturing something you're grateful for, or something, somebody or someplace that makes you feel wonderful, something's in your treasure chest, and adding that feeling, that, see how much I'm putting my own words to it here, how much unbridled love, joy, peace, delight you can feel in relationship to whatever that person or place is, and just let yourself saturate or marinate in that sensation. Is that for like another minute or so while you're continuing
just
to
for
breathe?
The whole thing? We call it a 1 minute technique.
Okay.
Because you do it longer to get started, and it'll help you remember to do it. Make post-it notes, because as you start to do this every day, you'll start to automatically go do it after that email that got you, or before a meeting that will probably get you, and prep and reset, we call it. You do it as often as you need to reset your system so that you're not draining energy. So you sleep better, so you make better food choices, so you're more in charge of yourself. So you just feel better all the day, and you'll help your health and wellness and your longevity.
Yeah.
It's remembering to do it is the challenge, but we're not talking about a huge hunk of the day. We're talking about 1 minute to get your mind connected to your heart and let your heart lead the way.
Okay. So following your heart isn't just a sweet phrase in a poem. It's a principle for a healthy, meaningful, coherent life.
Absolutely. And it's understanding the heart. Following your heart doesn't mean follow your emotional drive. It means really listening to your heart. But to do that, you have to really align your heart and activate it and get it in this coherent state so that your heart and brain are in sync. And then the mind will follow the heart.
When you're picturing breathing in and out through your heart, are you picturing a place kind of in the center of your chest?
Yes.
Or are you picturing the place on the left side, the actual physical heart?
I'm picturing the center of my chest because it really is the heart center or the heart chakra or the place at our core of our being where we feel who we are. You know, when I used to teach, I wrote the book Meditating with Children in the 1970s, you know that. And when I used to teach children how to meditate, I would say, who are you? Where are you located? Everybody points to their heart. Very few point up here.
Yeah. Fascinating. So then I'm curious, given that we have the same word for the pump, the blood pump, and the center of our emotional life, and yet physically we picture them being a few inches apart. Are they one and the same in your experience, or are they closely related but slightly nuanced different?
Well, one is a physical manifestation, but it really isn't. Just the valve is a few inches apart. If you look to see an anatomy, the heart, physical heart is right over the breastbone. It really is there. So, and the physical heart is responding through the different nervous system nodes to what's going on in that heart energy center. So they're totally connected. That's why we can feel heartache, heartbreak when that center shuts down, or we feel hurt, and we feel heart uplift and heart joy when it opens. Yeah. So it's all, and the physical heart responds with fast heartbeats or slow heartbeats or this HRV pattern. That's the new window.
Fascinating. So have there been studies on techniques like the one you just led us through and blood pressure?
Yes, actually, that was one of the first studies we did with Hewlett-Packard way back. They hired us to, and they did all the metrics. People practiced the technique like I taught you, and there's a few others similar. And then they were measured pre and post. They found that there was reduction in blood pressure without any other changes in this controlled study, equivalent to a low salt diet or medication or exercise. And they were able, people on this study were able to wean themselves from medication. And that was within 90 days. So there's been studies on HbA1c for diabetes that's been lowered, congestive heart failure, a study done by Stanford, hypertension, as you just mentioned. There's been studies done as far as immune response, cortisol and DHEA, increases DHEA, which is considered the anti-aging hormone. A lot of studies, and people can find them on the website. And we summarize a lot of them in our book, Heart Intelligence, Connecting with the Intuitive Guidance of the Heart. And the free offer we have once COVID hit, we just wanted to get these tools to everybody. So our program, HeartMath Experience, which is a video-based learning program with 5 HeartMath techniques, including the ones I taught you, and an overview of the research. You can watch it as a 90-minute film, interactive, because it pauses to tell you to do the technique, or you can watch it in 9-10-minute segments, and we're giving it away for free. So people can really go deep with this.
Okay, how do we access that?
Just go to heartmath.com
Yeah.
/experience.
HeartMath.com/experience.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Deborah, this is so fascinating and it's so empowering. I mean, Dr. Dean Ornish, in his landmark study, showed that really there were 4 principles that could slash heart disease risk by 90% or more, and could actually reverse heart disease in 90% of cases. And these were essentially summarized by eat better, stress less, love more, and move more.
Right.
And yet modern medicine, for the most part, says, oh yeah, you need to cut down on your stress. Good luck, because we live in a pretty stressed out world.
Right.
But you're showing us that we don't just need good luck. There are simple, tangible, practical things we can do that can make a world of difference. And we have studies showing us that a person who experiences an outburst of anger is 200% more likely to have a heart attack in the ensuing hour. And yet we also see what you're saying, which is kind of the opposite of that, that by practicing these things, we can actually reduce blood pressure, reduce heart attack risk, and increase our ability to respond resourcefully to life's challenges. And as I think we're also seeing, become a positive influence on the coherence of those around us.
Absolutely.
So when you're in a coherent state, you are better able to influence other people in a way that helps them land in a peaceful, coherent state in their nervous systems.
You got it. And I know Dean, and he said of all of those 4 things, love and support, emotional support, was the strongest and most effective. Because when you have that, then you're going to make better food choices. You're going to be able to manage your stress better, and you're going to have more motivation to get up and move. Yeah. It all boils down to wanting to feel good with ourselves.
Well, fantastic. Deborah, I want to thank you for your decades of research, for your leadership, for your practical application, for all of your books, for all of the work that you and your dozens of team members are doing to establish the intellectual and scientific foundations for something like love, and showing that this is essential to our survival and our well-being as a species and as individuals. I think what you are doing is critically important, and I'm so grateful for it. And for those who don't know, I've known Deborah since I was 10 years old. She actually helped to found a school back that taught these kinds of principles to kids. And I was blessed to go to that school. My family moved to California specifically so that I could go to that school back when I was 10 years old. And that school is no longer going, but obviously in some ways it's expanded now to include the whole world. And now we're all getting to reap the benefits. So I just want to say thank you so much for your leadership. And again, anybody who wants to go further can go to heartmath.com. And if you click on heartmath.com/experience, you can go deeper with some of the specific things Deborah's sharing here today. Thank you so much, Deborah.
Well, thank you, Ocean. You're a very good example of someone who's used these techniques since childhood. Look how well you've turned out.
Thank you. All right. Blessings to everybody. We wish you health and peace and joy and love and a fabulous day.
Thank you.
When it comes to cancer, Alzheimer's, diabetes, heart disease, and other chronic illness, what really matters isn't how many books you read, how many webinars you attend, or how much you know. What really matters at the end of the day is what you eat and how you live. The science has given us what we need to know. Now it's time for action. It's time to implement and optimize your healthy lifestyle. It's time to get results. It's time to say goodbye to confusion and hello to clarity. It's time to say goodbye to bad habits and hello to good ones. It's time to fall in love with foods that love you back. It's time to join a community that will support you in achieving your goals. It's time for Whole Life Club. Click the link to find out more and to join in now.